سلامونه نیکی هیلې او پیرزوینې الله دې وکړي چې روغ جوړ او صحتمند اوسېږئ. یو ځل بیا ستاسو په خدمت کې یم د څلورم کتاب سره. اول کتاب یې فیکټس اینډ فیګرز و، دوم یې تھاټس اینډ نوشنز و، دریم یې کاز اینډ افیکټ و چې درې واړه مونږ ولوستل، ویډیوګانې مې پرې جوړې کړې او نن یې په څلورم کتاب باندې پیل کوو. نو سټارټ اخلو. Ancestors, people from whom one is descended. نیکونه. Our ancestors lived in this valley hundreds of years ago. په سلهاو کالونو مخکې زموږ نیکونو په دغه داره کې ژوند کوو. Harsh, very difficult and unpleasant to live in. سخت، نارامه، شدید، جدي. The desert has a harsh climate with extreme temperatures. دښته چې سخت تودوخه یا ابو هوا لري د شدید تودوخه درجې سره. Manly, having qualities traditionally associated with men. مردانه، نارینه او پورې وصل. He spoke in a manly tone and took charge of the situation. هغه په مردانه شکل خبرې وکړلې او حالات په کنټرول کې ونیول. Adapt, to change to fit new situations. ځان عیارول، ځان برابرول. Animals must adapt to survive in the wild. حیوانات اړ دي چې ځانونه عیار کړي یا ځان ته تغییر ورکړي یا ځان برابر کړي د وحشتناکو یا وحشي ساحو حالات مطابق یا په وحشي ساحه کې. Unforgiving, not allowing for mistakes or weaknesses. سخته یا خطا یا غلطی نه بخونکی. The mountain trail was steep and unforgiving. دغه د غرونو لاره چې وه ژوره او سخته وه، مشکله وه. Landscape, a large area of natural scenery. منظره. The Afghan landscape includes mountains and deserts. د افغانستان په منظرو کې شامل دي غرونه او دښتې. Healing, the process of becoming healthy again. صحتمند کېدل، روغتیا ته بیرته راګرځېدل. Traditional herbs are used for physical and emotional healing. دودیز یا عنعنوي بوټي استفاده کیږي د جذباتي او فزیکي روغتیا لپاره. Restore, to bring something back to its original state. بیرته جوړول، بیرته روغول، ترمیمول. The museum will restore the ancient statue. میوزیم به بیرته ترمیم کړي یا بیرته به را جوړ کړي د قدیمي مجسمه. Well-being, a state of being healthy and happy. روغتیا، ښه صحت، صحتمندوالی. Exercise and good sleep improve your well-being. تمرین او ښه خوب ستاسو صحت ته وده ورکوي. Assistant, a person who helps someone else. همکار، مرستیال. The assistant handed the doctor the tools. همکار یا مرستیال آلې ډاکټر ته وسپارلې یا ورې کړلې. Required, to need something for a purpose. اړتیا لرل، ضرورت لرل. Most jobs require computer skills today. زیاتره وظیفې اوس وخت کې د کمپیوټر مهارتونو ته اړتیا لري. Serve, to help or provide for others. خدمت کول، مرسته کول. Soldiers serve their country with pride. عسکران د ویاړ سره د خپل ملک خدمت کوي. Evil, morally bad or harmful. مضر، بد. The story was about a hero fighting an evil king. کیسه چې وه د یو اتل یا قهرمان په اړه وه چې د یو بد یا ظالمه پاچا سره یې جنګ کوو. Imperative, extremely important or urgent. عاجل، ضروري. It is imperative to drink clean water. عاجل دی یا ضروري دی چې پاکې اوبه وڅښو. Properly, in a correct or suitable way. په سمه توګه، په صحیح بڼه. The machine will not work if it's not assembled properly. که ماشین په سمه بڼه بسته شوی نه اوسیږي، کار به ونه کړي. Ratio, a relationship between two numbers. تناسب. The student-teacher ratio is 1 to 20. د استاد او شاگرد تناسب 1:1 دی. One-on-one, involving two people in a direct interaction. 1:1. The coach held a one-on-one meeting with a player. کوچ یا مربی یا روزونکي 1:1 میټینګ دایره که یا رامنځته که د لوبغاړي سره. Tapestries, decorative woven clothes used on walls. پردې، جوړې شوې ښایسته پردې چې پر دیوالونو اچول کیږي. Afghan homes sometimes use colorful tapestries as decor. د افغانانو کورونه بعضې وخت کې ښایسته یا هنري پردې استفاده کوي من حیث د ډیکور یا د ډیکوریشن په کور کې. Woven, made by intertwining threads. ګنډل شوی. Third form of weave دی. The basket was woven by hand from palm leaves. سبت یا ټوکری چې و ګنډل شوی و د خرما د ونې د پاڼو څخه. Respected, admired and valued by others. دروند، عزتمن. The elder is a respected person in the village. دغه مشر چې دی یو دروند شخص دی په کلی کې. Original, first or earliest, not a copy. اصلي. This is the original design of the Afghan carpet. دا چې دی هغه اصلي ډیزاین د افغاني قالین دی. Controversy, strong disagreement about something. مخالفت، بحث. There was controversy over the new school rule. دغه نوی د مکتب د قانون په اړه جنجال و، خلاف و، اختلاف و.
Navajo sand painting. More than 500 years ago, the ancestors of the Navajo people left the cold northern region that is now part of western Canada and Alaska and migrated south to what is now the southwestern part of the United States. The area in which the Navajo finally settled is mainly desert. It is a harsh environment that gets little rain. The animals and plants that live there have had to adapt in order to survive in the unforgiving climate and landscape. When the Navajos arrived in the area, they too had to adapt to the harsh desert conditions in order to survive. They had to learn to make use of the natural resources in their environment to provide for their shelter, food, and other necessities. Over time, the Navajo became famous for the things they were able to create from the natural resources at hand. One of the most famous Navajo creations is called sand painting. Most people think of a painting as a work of art. For the Navajo, however, sand painting is not artwork. Rather, sand painting is an important part of a religious ceremony. The making of a sand painting is part of a healing ceremony that is supposed to restore the health and well-being of a sick person. The only people who are allowed to create sand paintings are specially trained Navajo singers or medicine men and their assistants. A Navajo singer begins the process of creating a sand painting by collecting different rocks. The rocks are then crushed and ground into sand. Traditionally, a Navajo singer and his assistants make the sand painting on the floor of a small Navajo house called a hogan. Working under the direction of the singer, the assistants take colored sand in their hands and drip it on the floor in a line. Using different colors, they slowly make a picture. The size of Navajo sand paintings varies. A small sand painting is less than a meter wide, while a large sand painting can be over 6 meters wide. The number of people assisting the singer also varies. A small sand painting may have 2 or 3 people working on it and take an hour to complete, while a large painting may require 10 men and women and take all day to finish. During the healing ceremony, the sick person moves on to the completed sand painting. The sick person sits directly on the sand painting so that it can serve as a pathway for evil or illness to leave the person's body and for goodness or health to return to it. This explains why the Navajo word for sand painting means place where the gods come and go. After the sick person has been treated, other visitors may go up to the painting and dab some of the sand on themselves so that the sand painting brings health and well-being into their lives too. At the end of the healing ceremony, it is imperative that the sand painting be destroyed. The Navajo believe that something terrible will happen if they fail to destroy a sand painting properly. So, in the reverse of the order in which it was made, the singer sweeps the painting away and returns the sand to the landscape. Navajo singers make their sand paintings from memory, and they always make the same pictures in exactly the same way. There are between 600 and 1,000 different pictures for sand paintings. At one point in history, there was one singer for every 150 Navajos. Today, the ratio is much lower, with one singer for roughly every 2,200 people. One reason for this change is the extensive training required to perform the duties of a singer. It can take as long as 14 years to train someone. A second reason for the change in ratio is that a singer can train only one student at a time. This need for one-on-one training has limited the number of students who can be trained. While a true sand painting is part of a Navajo ceremony and lasts for only a short time, sand painting as a permanent art form has also developed. The first permanent sand paintings appeared in the early 1900s. These early pieces of art were actually tapestries rather than paintings made with sand. The tapestries were woven by a respected Navajo singer named Hosteen Claw, who copied the pictures from sand paintings. However, to avoid causing something terrible to happen by making a permanent picture, Claw never made the picture exactly the same as the original. He would not use a Navajo picture without changing it a little. Before long, tourists in the area saw Claw's weavings and asked to buy them. Claw finally agreed to sell one of his weavings if the buyer promised never to put it on the floor or walk on it. In the 1930s, the Navajo began creating another type of permanent sand painting. They made these permanent paintings by slowly dripping colored sand onto glue-covered boards. Today, these sand paintings are considered to be works of art rather than part of a religious ceremony. They are made by artists rather than singers, and they appear in art shows and in art museums. There is still controversy over the selling of sand paintings. Some Navajos say that sand paintings are part of their religion and should not be sold, but others believe that the artist's changes to the pictures protect their religious power.
Artifacts, all human-made objects with historical value. زاړه یا پخوانی تاریخي توکي. The museum has Afghan artifacts from 1000 years ago. Museum چې دی د زرو کالو څخه پخوانی افغاني تاریخي توکي لري. Position, a place, role or opinion. موقف, مقام. He got a high position in the government office. هغه په حکومتي اداره کې یو لوړ مقام ترلاسه کړ. Fact, something that's true or real. حقیقت, رښتیا. It's a fact that Kabul is the capital of Afghanistan. دا یو حقیقت دی چې کابل پایتخت د افغانستان دی. Materials, things used to make something. مواد. We bought materials to build a clay oven. موږ مواد واخیستل تر څو د خټ څخه جوړ تنور جوړ کړو. Fire, flame and heat from burning. اور. We made fire to cook rice in the village. موږ اور ولګولو تر څو وریجې پخې کړو په کلي کې. Structure, a building or organized form. جوړښت, ودانۍ. The mosque is a beautiful structure made of stone. مسجد چې دی یو ښایسته ودانۍ ده چې د کاڼي څخه جوړه ده. Indistractable, not easily distracted. نه ګډوډه کیدونکی, نه بې توجه کیدونکی. A student must be indistractable during exams. شاګرد باید د امتحانو په جریان کې نه ګډوډه کیدونکی یا نه بې توجه کیدونکی. Durable, strong and lasting a long time. اوږدمهاله, دوام کوونکی. This Afghan rug is very durable and lasts for years. دغه افغاني قلینه چې د ډیره دوام کوونکې ده او تر کلونو دوام کوي. Decorate, to make something look better. سنګارول, ښایسته کول. We decorated the room for Eid. موږ اتاق د عید لپاره ډیکور کړ. Scratch, to scrape or mark the surface. خراشول, خریل, ګرول. Don't scratch the wooden table with your knife. میز د خپل چکو سره دغه د لرګي میز د خپل چکو سره مه خیریه, مه یې ګروه. Style, a way of doing or showing something. Style, her dress has a traditional Afghan style. د هغې کمیس یو دودیز یا ننوي افغاني style لري. Spread, to cover an area or move across. خوریدل, خپریدل. The news spread quickly through the village. خبر په تیزۍ سره خپور شو په کلي کې. Finest, best or highest quality. تر ټولو غوره, تر ټولو ښه. This is the finest green tea from Herat. دا تر ټولو غوره شین چای دی له هرات څخه. Fragile, easily broken or damaged. ضعیف, حساسه, نازک. Be careful, the glass cup is fragile. احتیاطمند اوسېږه, د شیشې دغه پیاله چې ده نازکه ده. Wind, moving air. باد. The strong wind broke the trees in the village. قوي شمال ونې ماتې کړې په کلي کې. Entirely, completely, fully, په پوره توګه. The house was entirely made of mud. کور په پوره توګه له خټې جوړ و. Uniformly, in an even or same way, په مساوي ډول. The bricks must be placed uniformly. خښتې باید په مساوي ډول کېښودلی شي. Purpose, the reason for doing something. موخه، هدف. The purpose of the meeting was to solve problems. The meeting یا د ملاحظې هدف دغه و چې مشکلات حل کړو. Incredibly, extremely or unbelievably. بیخي ډېر. The mountains in Bamiyan are incredibly beautiful. هغه غرونه چې په بامیانو کې دي بېخده ډېر ښایسته دي. Resistant, able to fight against something. مقاوم، دوام کوونکی. This fabric is resistant to water. دغه تکه چې ده د اوبو پر وړاندې مقاومه ده، مقاومت کوونکی. Punishment, a penalty for doing something wrong. جزا، سزا. He got punishment from stealing from the shop. هغه ته سزا ورکړل شوه د دې لپاره چې له دوکان غلا وکړه. Jail, a place where criminals are kept. زندان. The thief was sent to jail for 2 years. غل تر 2 کالو پورې بندي شو.
Unit 1, Lesson 2, Ceramics. The most ancient artifacts in our possession today were made out of clay many thousands of years ago. In fact, much of what we now know about cultures of the past we learned by studying pieces of their clay dishes and clay figures. Very few things made from other materials have survived to tell us about the cultures that produced them. Objects made from clay came to be called ceramics from the Greek word keremos, which means potter's clay. Ceramics are divided into many different kinds based on the type of clay used and how the clay is fired. The most common types of ceramics are pottery, stoneware, and porcelain. To make pottery, for example, clay is fired at about 500 degrees Celsius. Clay fired at about 1200 degrees Celsius becomes stoneware. When white clay is fired at an even higher temperature, it becomes porcelain. Baking the clay at such high temperatures actually changes the structure of the clay so that it becomes permanently hard and almost indestructible. The art of making pottery developed in many places around the world. Some of the earliest pieces of pottery were probably made when people tried to strengthen baskets woven of grass and sticks. Some archaeologists think that early potters in China may have covered the inside of woven baskets with clay so that the baskets would hold water. When the baskets were either placed on a fire or left there by mistake, the fire burned the grass away and turned the baskets into hard, durable pots. Early potters in different parts of the world found interesting ways to decorate their work to make it more attractive. They scratched the surface of the soft clay to make decorative lines and designs. They also used glazes, which are a special kind of paint, to make clay objects smooth, shiny, and colorful. The Egyptians were already decorating their pottery with colors and designs about 5,000 years ago. Similar styles began to spread throughout the Mediterranean region. By 3,500 years ago, the people of the Greek island of Crete were producing their own pottery decorated with designs and images of animals. These designs survived thousands of years and can still be seen in examples of ancient Greek art. The pottery makers of China were the first to learn to make porcelain, which is the finest and most fragile type of pottery. If you hold a piece of porcelain up in the air, light will shine through it. The Chinese exported porcelain to Europe, where it became highly valued. For many years, European potters tried to copy Chinese porcelain, but it was not until 1710 that a German scientist finally learned how to make it. By the end of the 18th century, other European countries were also producing porcelain, and today, France and England produce some of the finest porcelain in the world. There are different ways to form a clay dish or bowl. The easiest method is to simply hollow out a clay ball using your hands. Another simple method is to roll the clay into a long rope and then wind it into a shape. A third method is to spread the clay around something. The invention of the potter's wheel more than 5,000 years ago introduced an entirely new way to form a clay object. With this method, the potter places some clay in the center of a round, flat wheel that can turn very fast. As the wheel turns, the potter uses his or her hands to shape the clay. Using a potter's wheel makes it possible to form clay objects that are smoother and more uniformly round. A clay object is usually decorated first and then baked. Baking the clay at very high temperatures makes it hard and strong. Firing also makes the glaze stick to the pottery. When the firing is completed, the potter must carefully remove the pottery from the oven and let it cool slowly. If it cools too quickly, it could crack and break. Over the years, clay objects have served many purposes. Obviously, one of the most common uses of pottery is for household dishes. Because pottery is strong and waterproof, it makes an excellent dish for carrying, storing, cooking, and serving food. Fired clay has also been used to make bricks for building houses and to make tiles for covering floors. Ceramics are also incredibly heat-resistant, so they can be used where metal would melt or become weak. Today, ceramics are important in industry and engineering. One rarely discussed use of ceramics is for burial ceremonies. In some cultures, special ceramic objects were buried along with the dead person. Archaeologists think these ceramic objects were made especially for burial ceremonies because their decoration is elaborate. In some cultures, parts of a dead person's body were removed, placed in ceramic vases, and then buried with the body. Ceramic objects showing a dead person's title and offices held have also been found at burial sites. Some people refuse to consider the making of ceramics an art form because the objects created are so often useful things. At the same time, however, many of those useful ceramic things are extremely valuable. Some are even kept in museums. In the country of Iran, ancient pottery is considered to be so valuable to the culture that there are harsh punishments for anyone who tries to take ceramic artifacts out of the country. The punishments range from paying money to time in jail. That is certainly a clear indication that ceramics are valued by many people.
Amateur, a beginner, not professional, ابتدائي غير مسلكي. He is an amateur singer in his village. هغه یو غیر مسلکی سندرغاړی دی په خپل کلی کې. Notice, to see or become aware of, متوجه کېدل. I noticed smoke coming from the kitchen. ما دود ولیده چې د پخلنځي څخه راتله. Although, even though, in spite of, که څه هم. Although it was raining, they went to the market. که څه هم باران وریده هغوی مارکیټ ته لاړل. Ladder, a tool used to climb up or down. Zina, he used a ladder to pick apples from the tree. هغه زینه استفاده کړه تر څو له ونې څخه میوه وشکوي. Vast, very large in size or amount. لویه، پراخه. Afghanistan has vast mountains in the east. افغانستان west. افغانستان لوی غرونه لري په لویدیځ کې. Mint, a plant with fresh smell. پودینه، ویلنه. She added mint to the green tea. هغه شین چای کې ویلنه اضافه کړ. Tracings, copies by drawing over lines. نقشه کشی. The student made tracings of the carpet pattern. دغه شاګرد د کالینې د شکل یا د لاینونو څخه نقشه کشی جوړ کړه. Semicircle, half of a circle. نیمه دایره. They sat in a semicircle around the teacher. هغوی د استاد څخه شاوخوا په نیمه دایره کې کېناستل. For instance, as an example, د مثال په ډول. د مثال په توګه. For instance, Kabul is one Afghan big city. د مثال په ډول کابل یو لوی د افغانانو ښار دی. Extraordinarily, in a very unusual or special way. بیخي خاصه بڼه باندې. The handmade rug was extraordinarily beautiful. دغه لاس څخه جوړه شوې قالینه چې وه په بیخي خاصه بڼه ښایسته وه. Identify, to recognize or name something. پیژندل. The boy could identify his lost sheep. هلک کولی شو چې خپل ورک شوی پسه وپېژني. Curve, a smooth, rounded shape. کوږوالی. The road had a sharp curve near the river. سړک یو تیز یا شدید کوږوالی درلوده د سیند سره نږدې. Shading, dark areas in a draw to show light and shape. سیوری اچونه. سیوری. He used shading in his art to show depth. هغه په خپل هنر کې سیوری استفاده کوي تر څو ژوروالی څرګند کړي. Move, to go from one place to another. حرکت کول. We will move to the village in the summer. موږ به په اوړي کې کلي ته لاړ شو. Sophisticated, complex and advanced. پیچلی، پرمختللی. That radio is too sophisticated for children. هغه راډیو چې ده ډېره زیاته پیچلې ده د ماشومانو لپاره. Inaction, lack of activity. بې عملتوب، اکشن چې څوک نه اخلي. بې فعالیتوالی. Inaction during problems only makes them worse. د مشکلاتو په جریان کې بې عملتوب چې دی نور هم وضعیت خرابوي. Exquisite, very beautiful and finely made. ډیر ښایسته. This dress has exquisite embroidery from Kandahar. دغه کمیس چې دی ډیر زیات ښایسته ګلدوزي لري له کندهار څخه. Stiff, not easy to bend or move. کلک سخت شخ. The new shoes felt stiff on his feet. د هغې په پښو کې دغه نوي بوټانو شخ احساس کاوه. Rough, not smooth or gentle. کوږ ووږ غیر هوار. The rough road made it hard to ride the bike. دغه سخت یا کوږ ووږ سړک د بایسکل چلول سخت کړل. Preserve, to keep safe or in good condition. ساتل. We must preserve our culture and language. موږ باید خپل ژبې او فرهنګ ساتنه وکړو. Millennia, 1000 years, زر کاله. Afghan culture has lasted for millennia. د افغانستان فرهنګ دوام کړی تر زرو کالو پورې. Trial and error, testing different ways until finding the best. هڅه او تیروتنه. He learned to cook by trial and error. هغه اشپزي د هڅو او تیروتنو کولو په وسیله زده کړه. Components, parts of something larger. برخې. The radio has many small components inside. رادیو ډېرې زیاتې وړې برخې لري داخل.
Unit 1, Lesson 3, Cave Paintings. In December 1994, 3 amateur cave explorers, Jean-Marie Chauvet, Eliette Brunel-Deschamps, and Christian Hilaire, were investigating an area in southeastern France. On December 18th, they noticed the half-covered entrance to an unnamed cave. Although it didn't look like a very interesting cave, Eliette Deschamps pushed herself through the small opening. To her surprise, she saw a huge cave below. The 3 explorers returned to their truck to get a ladder, and even though it was already dark, they decided to go down into the cave. Once there, they discovered a vast network of rooms. On the walls were some of the most beautiful paintings they had ever seen. The cave discovered on December 18, 1994, is now called Chauvet Cave, after one of the amateur explorers who discovered it. Archaeologists who inspected the cave paintings soon after they were discovered estimated that the paintings were about 17,000 years old. A few months later, however, tests showed that 3 of the animals in the paintings were at least 31,000 years old. That meant the paintings in Chauvet Cave were the oldest existing cave paintings in the world. There are more than 300 paintings in Chauvet Cave. 73 of the paintings are of a type of lion that is now extinct. Other paintings show panthers, horses, mammoths, woolly rhinoceros, and other animals. There are also tracings of human hands, as well as symbols such as dots forming a semicircle. Many of the paintings are extraordinarily detailed. For instance, several of the pictures of lions show the varied patterns of whisker spots that biologists today use to identify individual animals. The artists used the natural curves of the cave walls to make the animals look real. They used shading and color, black, red, and yellow, to add depth to their paintings. When the French archaeologist Jean Clot was asked about the cave paintings, he said, "I was deeply moved when I saw the paintings. They're as good as any art made anywhere in the world." The paintings in Chauvet Cave were most likely done by a number of artists. Some of the paintings are extraordinarily sophisticated. With simple lines and shading, the artists created exquisite pictures of wild animals in action. Some of the paintings, however, are stiff and stylized, and others are quite rough and amateurish. Some archaeologists have suggested that the painters worked with assistants. Perhaps the assistants made the rough paintings while trying to copy their teachers' paintings. When the paintings in Chauvet Cave were discovered, they were perfectly preserved on the stone walls. No sunlight had entered the cave from the time the paintings were made until Chauvet and his friends found them. Unfortunately, the simple act of exposing paintings so that people can see them can cause the paintings to disappear. This happened to the paintings in another cave, within 6 months of the opening of the cave, the paintings had vanished. Now scientists know that they must enter caves carefully and prevent light and air from damaging the pictures. Today, Chauvet Cave is closed to the public because even the breathing of a large number of people could damage the paintings. Perhaps the most interesting thing about Chauvet Cave is that it has forced archaeologists to change their ideas about art. For many years, archaeologists believed that it took thousands of years for humans to gradually learn how to draw and paint. Chauvet Cave showed that there were great artists 30,000 years ago. Jean Claude summed it up, saying, "Our ancestors did not need millennia of trial and error to achieve great art. Artistic capacity was one of the components of our species probably right from the start." Chauvet Cave is only one of many caves in the world that have been decorated by ancient paintings. In Australia, South Africa, China, and many other places, extraordinary ancient works of art have been found. Why did prehistoric people make these paintings? Perhaps they believed that painting the animals gave the artists special strength or powers. Perhaps the paintings were part of a ceremony, or perhaps they were thought to hold some sort of magic. The answer to this question will probably always remain a mystery.
Evolve, to develop or change slowly over time. وده کول، نمو کول. Languages evolve with time. ژبې تکامل کوي د وخت په تیریدو سره. Genuine, real, honest and not fake. اصلي، حقیقي. He gave me a genuine smile. هغه ماته یو حقیقي مسکا وکړه. Declaration, an official or strong statement. اعلان، بیانیه. The leader made a declaration of peace. رهبر د صلح وینا وکړه. Cheating, dishonest behavior to win or get something. درغلي، دوکا، فریب. Cheating in exams is not allowed. په امتحان کې نقل کولو ته اجازه نشته. Carve, to cut something into a shape. په یو مشخص بڼه یا شکل کټ کول. He carved a flower on wood. هغه په لرګي کې ګل کټ کړ یا را جوړ کړ. کله چې لرګی ووهي په یو مشخص حاله باندې د هغې نه ګل راوباسي. Concern, a feeling of worry or care. اندېښنه، تشویش. Parents have concern for their children's safety. والدین تشویش یا اندېښنه کوي د خپلو ماشومانو د محفوظیت لپاره. Gang, a group that may be involved in crime. ډله، گروه. The police stopped a gang near the market. پولیسو یو ډله ودروله د مارکیټ سره نږدې. Territory, an area that belongs to someone or a group. سیمه، ساحه. Each tribe had its own territory. هر قوم خپله ساحه درلوده. Distinctive, different in a special and clear way. جلا، ځانګړی. That mosque has a distinctive blue dome. هغه مسجد ښایسته یا ځانګړی آبي ګنبده لري. Stand out, a person or thing that is much better than others. ځلانده، غوره، بهتره. She was the standout student in the class. هغه بهتره یا غوره شاګرده وه په صنف کې. Boulder, a large round rock. غټه تیږه، لوی کاڼی. A big boulder blocked the road. یو غټ کاڼي سړک بند کړ. According to, as said by or based on something. مطابق د، سره له. According to the news, it will rain tomorrow. د خبرونو مطابق سبا باران وشي. Approve, to agree with or accept something. تاییدول، منل. My father approves of my job choices. زما پلار تایید کوي زما د وظیفې د انتخابونو څخه. Vandalism, deliberate damage to public property. تباه کونه، ورانونه، قصدي له منځه وړنه. Vandalism at schools is not acceptable. په مکتبونو کې تخریب د منلو وړ نه دی. Arrogance, too much self-pride or self-love. غرور. Arrogance can ruin friendships. غرور کولی شي ملګرتیاوې له منځه یوسي. Prisons, places where criminals are kept. زندانونه. Prisons are built to hold lawbreakers. زندانونه د دې لپاره جوړ شوي تر څو قانون ماتونکي پکې وساتلی شي. Campaign, organized activities to achieve a goal. مبارزه، campaign. They started a campaign to clean the village. هغوی مبارزه یا campaign پیل کړ تر څو کلی پاک کړي. Get rid of, to throw away something unwanted. ځان ترې خلاصول. He wants to get rid of old clothes. هغه غواړي د زاړو کلو څخه ځان خلاص کړي. Combat, to fight against. جنگ کول، مبارزه کول. We must combat, fight We must combat corruption together. موږ باید د فساد پر وړاندې یو ځای مبارزه وکړو. Effective. Working well and giving good results. اغیزمن، مؤثر. This medicine is effective for fever. دغه درمل د تبې لپاره مؤثره دی، اغیزمن دی. Designated. Officially chosen or assigned. ټاکل شوی، انتخاب شوی. He parked in the designated area. هغه په هغه مشخصوي ساحه کې موټر پارک کړی او ودروه. Sponsor. A person or group that supports someone or something with money or help. Sponsor کوونکی. Our local shop was the sponsor of the event. زموږ محلي دکان چې وو د دغه برنامې یا واقع سپانسر وو.
Unit 1. Lesson 4. Graffiti. A quiet street, a blank wall, a can of spray paint, and a young person goes to work writing graffiti. The term graffiti means words or drawings scratched or painted on a wall. The word comes from the Greek term graphine, which means to write. People have been writing graffiti on walls for thousands of years, but today some people believe that certain types of graffiti have evolved into a genuine art form. Many of the oldest existing examples of graffiti are from the ancient city of Pompeii on the western coast of Italy. In the year 79, Pompeii was destroyed by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Ash from the volcano buried the city, preserving much of it for us to see today. Carved on the walls of Pompeii are many examples of graffiti. Some of the graffiti are declarations of love, while others are insults. Some of the graffiti are complaints about store owners who were cheating people, while others are political statements or rough drawings of people. Although the messages differ, the graffiti have one important thing in common. They were all written without the permission of the owner of the wall. For historians, however, these graffiti are some of the few available sources of information about the lives of the common people of Pompeii and their everyday concerns. While people have been writing graffiti on walls for thousands of years, in the 1960s, a new type of graffiti started appearing on city walls in the United States. Some people called this type of graffiti gang graffiti because it was made by gang members to identify their territory. Gang graffiti consisted simply of the gang's name, or tag. Its purpose was to warn other gangs to stay away. A gang's tag had to be distinctive and easy to make quickly, but it was not meant to be artistic. By the end of the 1970s, the practice of tagging was no longer mainly a gang activity. People who had no connection to a gang were writing their names on flat surfaces all around the city. Their goal was to become famous by getting their name on as many surfaces as possible. However, as more and more people got involved in tagging, it became increasingly difficult for writers to get attention. This led some writers to begin experimenting with ways to make their tags stand out. Some started making their tags bigger and bolder, while others combined letters with pictures. As tags became increasingly elaborate, individual styles could be identified. From tagging, graffiti developed into something called graffiti art, or aerosol art. Graffiti artists combined their unique letter styles with pictures to create large paintings that covered an entire wall or the entire side of a subway car. During the 1970s and 1980s, the subway cars of New York became a moving museum of art for graffiti artists. The purpose of graffiti art, unlike that of gang graffiti, is self-expression and creativity. According to one graffiti artist, creating graffiti is an art, and just like any other art, it requires tons of practice and work. Today, most graffiti art is made with spray paint, although some artists also use brushes and markers. For graffiti artists, just about anything can serve as a surface for their artwork, even rocks, roads, and billboards. Of course, not everyone likes or approves of the graffiti on city walls. In fact, most people think of creating graffiti as vandalism rather than art. For the majority of people, doing graffiti without someone's permission is not freedom of expression. It is arrogance. And the presence of graffiti in their neighborhoods makes many people feel less safe. Seeing graffiti all around them makes many people feel that danger is just around the corner. In the 1980s, many cities started taking action against graffiti. The city of New York, for example, started a campaign to get rid of graffiti on subway cars. By painting over the graffiti soon after they were made, the city was able to discourage graffiti artists from decorating the subway cars. Then in 1987, a new type of paint-resistant subway car became available, making it impossible for graffiti artists to paint on the cars. The city of Los Angeles bought several paint stores on wheels to combat graffiti. These vans traveled around the city looking for graffiti and painting over them immediately. The city's goal was to discourage graffiti artists by painting over the graffiti within 24 hours. Other cities have used protective coatings and special building materials to prevent people from writing graffiti. Although these solutions have been effective, they are very expensive. Does this mean the end of graffiti? Not quite. In some countries, such as Japan, England, and the United States, graffiti artists are allowed to do their work on specially designated walls in a city. Graffiti art is shown in museums, and in Australia, well-known companies sponsor graffiti competitions. There are also hundreds of websites dealing with graffiti art, as well as many books and instructional videos. And of course, there are still people who will try to leave their mark on someone else's wall.
Delegate, a person chosen to speak or act for others. Namayinda. Each province sent one delegate. Har walayat yaw namayinda uligalo. Charter, a written statement of rules or rights. Manshur. The new school has its own charter. دغه نوې مکتب چې دا خپل چارټر لري یا خپل منشور لري. States, countries or regions with their own governments. ایالتونه. The United States has 50 states. ایالات متحده چې د 50 ایالتونه لري. Headquarters, the main office of an organization. مرکزی دفتر. The army headquarters is in Kabul. د اردو مرکزی دفتر چې دی په کابل کې دی. Representative, a person who is chosen on behalf of someone or organization. نماینده. He was the village representative in the meeting. هغه د کلی نماینده و په میټینګ کې. Responsibility, something you must do or take care of. مسؤلیت. It is your responsibility to finish the task. دا ستاسو مسؤلیت دی چې وظیفه خلاصه کړئ یا دغه دنده ترسره کړئ. Maintain, to keep in good condition. ساتل. We must maintain the mosque clean. موږ باید مسجد پاک وساتو. Economic, related to money or trade. اقتصادي. Afghanistan faces many economic challenges. افغانستان زیاد د اقتصادي چالشونو سره مخامخ کی. Elect, to choose someone by voting. انتخابول. People will elect a new mayor soon. خلق به ډیر زر یو نوی ښاروال انتخاب کړي. Success, achieving your goals. بریا، کامیابی. Hard work leads to success. زحمت د کامیابی پای دی. Role, a part or duty someone has. نقش، role. The teacher's role is to guide the students. د استاد نقش یا رول دغه دی چې شاګردانو ته لارښوونه هدایت وکړي. Negotiate, to discuss in order to reach an agreement. مذاکره کول. They will negotiate a peace deal. هغوی به د صلح په یو معامله باندې مذاکره وکړي. Settlement, an official agreement to end a conflict. روغه جوړه. The two tribes reached a peaceful settlement. دغه دوه قبیلې یو صلحامیزه روغې جوړې ته ورسېدل سره. Facility, a place or building for a specific purpose. سهولت، اسانتیا. The clinic is a new health facility in the village. دغه کلینیک چې دی یو نوی د صحت لپاره اسانتیا رامیزه شوی په کلي کې. Ceasefire, an agreement to stop fighting. اوربند. Both sides agreed on a ceasefire. دواړو اړخونو په اوربند باندې سره موافقه وکړه. Mission, a special task or job. ماموریت. The doctor went on a mission to help remote villages. ډاکټر په دغه ماموریت یا وظیفه باندې لاړلو ترڅو د لرې کلو سره مرسته وکړي. Withdrawal, the act of pulling or leaving. شاته تګ. The army announced its withdrawal from the area. اردو اعلان کړ چې شاته تګ کوي د ساحې څخه. Troops, soldiers especially in large groups. سرتیری، نظامی قوې. The government sent troops to protect the town. حکومت نظامی قوې یا سرتیری ولېږل ترڅو د ښارګوټي څخه حفاظت وکړي. Evaluate, to assess or judge something. تحلیل کول، ارزونه کول. The teacher will evaluate the student's progress. استاد به ارزونه وکړي د شاګرد د ودې یا د پرمختګ. Announce, to officially say something in public. اعلانول. They announced the results of the election. هغوی د انتخاباتو نتایج اعلان کړل. Conferences, formal meetings for discussions. Conference. Leaders held conferences about peace. رهبرانو کنفرانسونه رامنځته کړل یا ونیول د صلح په اړه. Issues, important topics or problems. موضوعات، مشکلات. The community discussed local issues. ټولنې بحث وکړ پر محلي مشکلاتو یا ستونزو. Specific, clearly defined or specified. مشخص. He asked for a specific type of medicine. هغه یو مشخص قسم کې درملو غوښتنه وکړه. Focus, to give attention to something. توجه ورکول. We should focus on education. موږ باید پر تعلیم تمرکز وکړو.
Unit 2, Organizations. Unit 2, Lesson 1, The United Nations. In 1945, delegates from 50 countries met in San Francisco, California, to make plans for an organization called the United Nations. World War II had just ended. Millions of people had died, and there was destruction everywhere. People hoped they could build a future of world peace through this new organization. The Charter of the United Nations, UN, states the 4 main goals and purposes of the organization. They are: 1. To work together for international peace and to solve international problems. 2. To develop friendly relations among nations. 3. To work together for human rights for everyone of all races, religions, languages, and of both sexes. And 4. To build a center where nations can work together for these goals. The United Nations has grown from an organization of 51 countries in 1945 to 191 nations in 2004. Today, almost every country in the world is a member of the UN. Each country that joins the United Nations signs an agreement that says: 1. All members are equal. 2. All members promise to solve international problems in a peaceful way. 3. No member will use force against another member. 4. All members will help the UN in its actions. 5. The UN will not try to solve problems within countries except to enforce international peace. The headquarters of the United Nations is in New York City. This is where the General Assembly, the main body of the United Nations, meets every year from September to December. The General Assembly is made up of representatives from each member country who discuss issues related to peace and security and make recommendations. However, the General Assembly does not have the power to enforce its recommendations. A second UN body, the 15-member Security Council, has the main responsibility for maintaining international peace. 5 members, Britain, China, France, the Russian Federation, and the United States, are permanent members of the Security Council. The remaining 10 members are elected by the General Assembly and serve 2-year terms. A third organ of the UN, the Economic and Social Council, is responsible for the social and economic work of the UN. Over the years, the United Nations has had some successes in its role of world peacemaker. It has negotiated 172 peaceful settlements and helped to end 2 wars. It has also helped to slow the spread of nuclear weapons by inspecting nuclear facilities in 90 countries. As a peacekeeper, the UN has also had a number of successes. Since 1945, UN peacekeeping forces have been involved in 56 missions. They have supervised ceasefires and the withdrawal of troops, and they have monitored elections. Over the years, roughly 130 nations have participated in the peacekeeping missions. In 1988, the UN peacekeeping forces received the Nobel Peace Prize. Unfortunately, member nations have been unwilling to give UN peacekeeping forces the independence and financial support they need to be even more effective. In evaluating the success of the UN, it is important to keep in mind that the organization has many functions in addition to preventing or ending wars. The United Nations is really a family of related organizations, which are working to provide a better life for people everywhere. One part of the UN family is UNICEF, an organization that provides food, medical care, and many other services to poor children wherever they live. Thanks to the efforts of UNICEF, the immunization rate of children in developing countries has jumped from 5% in 1974 to more than 80% today. Another part of the UN family is the World Health Organization, WHO, which develops medical programs for people all over the world. In 1980, WHO announced that after 13 years of work, it had succeeded in ridding the world of the disease smallpox. To support its humanitarian efforts, the UN employs thousands of people all around the world. They work as planners to increase production in farming and industry. They provide medical services, improve education programs, and spread scientific information. They develop programs that provide jobs and better living conditions. They also help countries control their population growth. The United Nations also organizes large international conferences where people meet to discuss important world issues. One conference was about the uses and ownership of oceans. Another was about women. The United Nations also designates a specific problem for people to focus on each year. For example, the year 2003 was declared the International Year of Fresh Water. During these special years, people work together to find solutions to the designated problems. Many people believe that the best way for the United Nations to work for world peace is through its humanitarian activities. They hope that promoting contact and communication among people will make wars less likely.
Sentence, punishment given by a court. Jaza. The judge gave him a 10-year sentence. Qazi هغې ته د 10 کالو سزا ورکړه. Remarks, spoken comments or statements. Nazariyat. His remarks about the teacher were respectful. د هغې نظریات د استاد په اړه محترمانه وو. Incident, an event often unexpected or bad. پیښه, حادثه. The incident happened at the school gate. حادثه د مکتب پر دروازه کې واقع شوه. Cases, particular situations or examples. قضیه. There are many cases of flu in winter. ډېرې زیاتې قضیې د زکام رامنځته کیږي په ژمي کې. Release, to set someone free. آزادول. They released the prisoner after 10 years. هغوی وروسته له 10 کالو زنداني آزاد کړ. Conscientious, careful and what is doing is right. وجداني, انساني. A conscientious worker always does his best. یو وجداني یا وجدان لرونکی کارګر همیشه خپله پوره هڅه کوي. Fair trial, just a legal process. عادلانه محکمه. Everyone deserves a fair trial. هر څوک د عادلانه محکمې یا د عادلانه انصاف حق لري. Torture, severe pain given to someone on purpose. شکنجه. Torture is banned in many countries. شکنجه چې دا منع شوې ده یا بنده ده په ډېرو ملکونو کې. Penalty, punishment for breaking the law. جزا, سزا. He received a penalty for speeding. د سپیډ یا سرعت لپاره هغه ته جریمه ورکړل شوه. جریمې ته هم. Impartiality, treating everyone fairly without bias. بېتعصبوالی, بېفرقوالی, غیر قوم پرستی. څوک چې فرق نه کوي د څو کسانو ترمنځ. Judges must show impartiality in court. قاضیان باید بېتعصبوالی څرګند کړي په محکمو کې. Reliability, being dependable and trustworthy. د باور وړتوب. Reliability is important in friendships. په ملګرتیاو کې د باور وړتوب مهم دی. Contributions, things given or done for help. مرسته, کومک. His contributions helped the school grow. د هغې مرستو له مکتب څخه مرسته وکړه تر څو وده وکړي. Accurate, correct and exact. دقیق. He gave an accurate report of the event. هغه دقیق راپور د حادثې ورکړه یا واقع ورکړه. Witness, someone who sees an event happen. شاهد. The witness told the truth in court. شاهد په محکمه کې حقیقت ویلي. Profile, a short description about someone. Profile په خپل پروفایل ته وایي. پیژندنه, لنډه پیژندنه یا شناخت پاڼه. Her profile shows she's a good teacher. د هغې پیژندپاڼه څرګندوي چې هغه یو ښه استاذه ده. Publicity, attention from the public or media. شهرت، د توجه وړ ګرځېدنه. The project got a lot of publicity. پروژې ډېره زیاتې عامه توجه لاسته راوړه. Award, a prize for achievement. انعام، جایزه. He received an award for bravery. د زړورتیا لپاره هغه یو انعام لاسته راوړ. Murder, the crime of killing someone. قتل. The police are investigating the murder. Police د قتل تحقیق کوي. Valuable, worth a lot or very useful. ارزښتناک. This book is valuable for students. دغه کتاب د شاګردانو لپاره ارزښتمند دی. Staff, the group of people who work somewhere. Staff, گروه، ډله، کارمندان. The hospital has kind and trained staff. شفاخانه مهربانه او روزلي کارمندان لري.
Unit 2, Lesson 2, Amnesty International. In 1960, 2 students in Portugal were sentenced to 7 years in prison. The reason? They had made critical remarks about their government. In England, a lawyer by the name of Peter Benenson read about this incident and decided he had to do something. Benenson wrote a newspaper article called The Forgotten Prisoners. In it, he told about 6 people in 6 different countries who were in prison because of their beliefs. In the newspaper article, Benenson asked readers to join him in a year-long campaign against the imprisonment of people for their political or religious beliefs. It was Benenson's hope that people would write letters to government officials calling for the release of these prisoners. In the first months of the campaign, people sent thousands of letters demanding the release of the prisoners. By the end of 1961, the campaign had developed into a permanent international organization called Amnesty International, and it was already working on the cases of 210 prisoners. Amnesty International's primary goal is to obtain the release of prisoners of conscience. These are people who have been imprisoned for their beliefs. They have neither used violence themselves nor encouraged anyone else to use violence. Tony Ambatelos, one of the 6 prisoners of conscience whom Benenson wrote about in 1961, was put in prison for his trade union activities. Another one of the prisoners, Dr. Agostinho Neto, was jailed for trying to improve health care in his country. In the 1960s, many Amnesty members formed small groups to adopt a prisoner of conscience. When a group adopted a prisoner of conscience, it concentrated on helping that specific prisoner. Members of the group would regularly write letters to officials in the prisoner's government, and when possible, they would try to help the prisoner's family. Today, there are more than 2,000 adoption groups, each focusing its efforts on 2 or more prisoners. As Amnesty International grew, it expanded its mission to include other victims of human rights abuse. Today, the organization is working to make sure all prisoners get a fair trial and to end all types of torture. It is also involved in a major campaign to end the death penalty. Amnesty International has become an effective organization in large part because of its impartiality and reliability. To maintain its impartiality, Amnesty is careful to remain independent of all national governments. It gets its money from individual contributions and special events. To maintain its reliability, Amnesty puts much time, effort, and money into getting accurate information about prisoners. Research teams carefully check the facts about human rights abuses. Fact-finding teams interview prisoners, family members, witnesses, and government officials. This information is used to create a profile with the facts about each person's imprisonment. Amnesty International works to help individual prisoners. It does not try to change the governments that are holding the prisoners of conscience. After some negative publicity in the late 1960s, Amnesty International adopted a rule that members of the organization could not work on cases inside their own country. The organization worried that members working in their own country would not be able to stay impartial. In 1977, Amnesty International was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. In the same year, Steve Biko, an African anti-apartheid activist, was imprisoned for his political activities. While Biko was in prison, he was tortured and eventually murdered for his beliefs. A popular musician named Peter Gabriel wrote a song called Biko to protest his murder and to support the work of Amnesty International. Over 25 years later, when audiences hear the song Biko, they often stand and join in the singing. In the mid-1980s, Amnesty International was helped by a number of other well-known musicians. To help the organization, the musicians gave concerts and contributed their profits to Amnesty International. The concerts gave the organization valuable publicity as well as financial support, and it was able to increase the size of its staff and the number of offices worldwide. In 2004, the United States chapter of Amnesty International released the Music for Human Rights CD with some of the hottest musicians of the year and offered it for free to new members. The support of popular musicians helped to inform young people and interest them in Amnesty International. Amnesty International now has 1.5 million members in 162 countries. It continues to petition for improvements in prisons, the end of torture, and the release of prisoners of conscience. Amnesty members continue to tirelessly write letters and hold benefits, vigils, and fundraisers for prisoners of conscience around the world. And what happened to the 6 prisoners of conscience whom Benenson wrote about in 1961? All of them eventually gained their freedom.
Acronym, a word formed from the first letters of a phrase. Learn halat, mukhtasar halat. UNICEF is an acronym for United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. UNICEF chide the United Nations International Children Emergency Fund chide the day learn halat de. Stand for, to represent or mean something. Per arch ki udridil, dafaa kol. Who stands for World Health Organization? Who ya WHO chide learn halat the World Health Organization. Emergency, a serious and unexpected situation needing action. Istirari halat. We called the ambulance during the medical emergency. The TB istirari halat po jiriyan ke mung ambulance zang waha. Expand, to grow or increase in size. Parakhawal, ghazawal. The school will expand to include more students. Maktab ba waghazi ki tarso ziyad shagirdan pe ki dakhila kari. Eradication, complete removal or destruction of something. Tabahi, barbadi. The eradication of polio is a health priority. The polio لمنځه وړنه یا تبعی یا بربادي یا ختمونه چې دا یو د صحت په برخه کې اولویت دی. Sharp, having a pointed edge or very sudden. تیره، تیز. He used a sharp knife to cut the meat. هغه یو تیره چاقو استفاده کړ ترڅو غوښه پرې کړي. Routine, a regular way of doing something. ورځنی فعالیت. He follows a healthy morning routine. هغه یو صحتمند د سهار ورځنی فعالیت فالو کوي، تعقیبوي. Persist, to continue firmly despite difficulty. ادامه ورکول. She persisted in her studies even during hard times. هغه په خپل درسونو کې ادامه ورکړه حتی په سختو حالاتو کې. Budget, a financial plan for spending. بودیجه. The family made a budget to manage their expenses. کورنۍ یو بودیجه رامنځته کړله ترڅو خپل مصارف کنټرول کړي. Overwhelming, very great or intense. ډیر زیات فشار راوړونکی. The support from the village was overwhelming. هغه ملاتړ یا حمایت چې د کلي څخه لاسته راغی ډیر زیات و. Access, the ability to enter or use something. لاسرسی. Many villagers don't have access to clean water. ډیر کلیوال چې دي او پاکو اوبو ته لاسرسی نه لري. Adequate, کافي. Satisfactory, the food was adequate for all guests. خواړه چې و د ټولو مېلمانو لپاره کافي. Globally, throughout the world, په نړیواله کچه. Poverty is a problem faced globally. غربت په نړیواله کچه شتون لري یا شته دی. Ignorance, lack of knowledge or awareness. بېخبري، ناپوهي. Ignorance about hygiene can cause diseases. د نظافت په اړه ناپوهي چې دا د مرضونو سبب کېدای شي. Survey, a study or research to collect information. تحقیق، څېړنه، survey. They did a survey about education in the village. هغوی یو پلټنې او سروې وکړه د تعلیم په اړه په کلي کې. Transmit, to spread or pass on, especially diseases. انتقال ورکول. Mosquitoes can transmit malaria. حشرات یا mosquitoes کولای شي ملاریا انتقال کړي. Discrimination, unfair treatment of people. تعصب، فرق. Discrimination based on gender is harmful. د جنسیت تعصب یا فرق چې دی ضرر رسونکی دی. Vital, very important or necessary. ډیر مهم. Clean water is vital for good health. پاکي اوبه چې دي ډېرې ضرور دي د ښه صحت لپاره. Disasters, sudden bad events causing harm. مصیبت. Floods and earthquakes are natural disasters. سیلابونه او زلزلې طبیعي مصیبتونه دي. Contaminated, dirty or polluted. ککړ، مردار. People get sick from contaminated water. خلق مریضیږي د مردار اوبو څخه. Traumatized, to cause emotional or mental pain. ذهني ضربه ورکول. The child was traumatized by the explosion. ماشوم ته ذهني ضربه رسیدلې وه د انفجار له امله. Donate, to give for a good cause. Free یا مفت ورکول، زکات په شکل. He donated clothes to the poor during one winter. د ژمي په جریان کې هغه کالي غریبانو ته زکات یا صدقې په بڼه ورکړل.
Unit 2, Lesson 3, UNICEF. The acronym UNICEF stands for United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. This organization was created by the United Nations in 1946 to provide emergency help to children in post-war Europe and China. In 1950, UNICEF's responsibilities were expanded to providing long-term help to children and mothers in all developing countries. 3 years later, UNICEF became a permanent part of the United Nations system, and its name was changed to United Nations Children's Fund. Despite the name change, the acronym UNICEF was kept, and today most people know of the organization by its acronym rather than its name. UNICEF works with the governments of individual countries to provide 3 kinds of services. It plans and develops programs, trains people to work in these programs, and provides the supplies and equipment to help the programs function. The programs that UNICEF develops cover 5 main areas: immunization, education for girls, child protection, early childhood development, and HIV/AIDS. In the area of immunization, UNICEF has had many successes, but it still has much work to do. Among its successes are the eradication of smallpox, the near eradication of polio, and a sharp decrease in the number of deaths from measles and tetanus. However, there are still countries that do not provide routine immunization, and in these countries, diseases such as measles, diphtheria, whooping cough, tuberculosis, and tetanus persist. According to UNICEF, more than 2 million children die each year from diseases that could have been prevented by inexpensive vaccines. A second goal of UNICEF is giving children the best possible start in life. In fact, more than half of UNICEF's budget is used to help children in their first years of life by providing them with better health care, nutrition, water, sanitation, and education. But the needs of young children around the world are overwhelming. According to UNICEF, out of 100 children born in a year, 30 will most likely suffer from malnutrition in their first 5 years of life. 26 will not be immunized against the basic childhood diseases. 19 will lack access to safe drinking water and 40 to adequate sanitation, and 17 will never go to school. Each year, these problems cause the death of 11 million children under the age of 5. That means each day 30,000 children die, and most of these deaths could be prevented. One of the biggest challenges facing UNICEF today is HIV/AIDS. Globally, there are now 42 million people with HIV/AIDS. More than 3 million of them are children under the age of 15, and 12 million are young people between the ages of 15 and 24. One of the primary reasons for the increase in the number of HIV/AIDS cases is ignorance about how the disease is spread. Surveys done in 60 countries have revealed that the majority of young people do not understand how HIV/AIDS is transmitted from one person to another. To change this, UNICEF focuses much of its attention on educating young people about the disease. In addition to its educational programs, UNICEF is also involved in taking care of people with the disease and protecting them from discrimination. While much of UNICEF's work is now in long-term projects, it still plays a vital role in emergency situations. In cases of natural disasters, such as floods and earthquakes, UNICEF is able to respond quickly to people's needs, especially the needs of children. For example, when monsoon rains caused rivers in Bangladesh to flood in 2004, millions of people were affected. The floods contaminated drinking water supplies, quickly spreading disease. UNICEF was able to move in quickly with medical supplies and equipment to set up sanitation systems. The organization's rapid response to disaster prevented the deaths of many children. Again, when a tsunami hit countries in Southeast Asia in 2004, UNICEF was able to rush relief assistance to the area to help the survivors. In addition to providing safe drinking water in order to prevent the spread of disease, UNICEF was involved in helping thousands of children who were separated from or lost their parents when the tsunami hit, as well as many more who were traumatized by the event. How does UNICEF pay for all this? 3/4 of the organization's money comes from the contributions of governments. The remaining 1/4 comes from individual contributions, the sale of UNICEF's greeting cards and products, and special events held to collect money for the organization. For example, in 2004, a chef in London decided he had to do something to help the victims of the tsunami. He organized an event called UniChef, in which more than 150 restaurants joined together to raise money for UNICEF's Tsunami Children's Emergency Appeal. Restaurants participating in the UniChef event donated a large part of their earnings. With the help of people and organizations like that, UNICEF will be able to continue helping children around the world.
Encompass, to include or cover something completely. پوره احاطه کول. This book encompasses Afghan history and culture. دغه کتاب چې د راچرخیږي یا غږیږي په افغاني فرهنګ باندې. Guide to lead or show the way. لارښوونه کول، هدایت کول، هدایت کوونکي ته هم وایي. The tour guide showed us historical places in Kabul. دغه د چکر هدایت کوونکي یا لارښوونکي موږ ته تاریخي ځایونه وښودل په کابل کې. Recognize, to know or remember someone or something. پیژندل. I recognized my old teacher at the market. ما خپل پخوانی استاد وپیژنده په مارکیټ کې. Authority, power or right to give decisions or make orders. واک، صلاحیت. The village elder has the authority to solve disputes. دغه کلی مشر چې دی دغه واک لري تر څو جنجالونه حل کړي. Judge, a person who decides legal cases or to form an opinion. قاضي یا هم قضاوت کول. The judge listened to both sides before giving a decision. مخکې له دې چې قاضي تصمیم ونیسي دواړو اړخونو ته غوږ ونیوه. Referee, a person who makes sure the rules are followed in sports. Referee منځغړی. The referee stopped the football match due to the fall. د غلطۍ له امله referee یا د لوبې قاضي چې و هغې دغه میچ سټاپ کړ. Forthcoming, about to happen or appear. راتلونکی. The forthcoming election is important for the country. راتلونکي انتخابات د ملک لپاره مهم دي. Applaud, to clap hands in approval. چکچکې وهل. The students applauded the teacher for her hard work. شاګردانو ستاینه یا چکچکې وهلې د استاد لپاره د هغې د زحمت لپاره. Appoint, to choose someone for a position. ټاکل. The president appointed a new minister. ولسمشر یو نوی وزیر وټاکه. State of mind, a person's emotional condition. ذهني حالات. His peaceful state of mind helped him in decision making. د هغې آرامه حالات یا ذهني حالات چې د هغې سره یې په تصمیم نیولو کې مرسته وکړه. Democratic, based on the principles of democracy. Democratic. Afghanistan hopes for a democratic future. افغانستان هیله لري د یو دیموکراتیک آینده لپاره. Philosophy, a system of beliefs or ideas. فلسفه. My grandfather lived by a simple philosophy. Respect everyone. زما نیکه د یو ډېرې سادې فلسفې سره ژوند وکړ. هر چاته احترام کو. Exalt, to praise or raise someone to a high level. لوړول، لوړ مقام ورکول، ارتقا ورکول. People exalted the martyr for his bravery. خلکو ارتقا ورکړه مقام ته د شهید د هغې د شجاعت یا زړورتیا لپاره. Solidarity, unity or agreement among people. یووالی، اتحاد. There was strong solidarity among the villagers during the flood. د سیلاب په جریان کې د کلیوالانو ترمنځ یو قوي اتحاد و. Engage, to take part or participate. ګډون کول یا هم مصروف ساتل. The youth engaged in rebuilding the village school. ځوانې طبقې ګډون وکړه د جوړولو په برخه کې د کلي د مکتب. Intermediary, a person who acts as a link between two parties. منځغړی. The elder acted as an intermediary between two families. دغه د دوو کورنیو ترمنځ دغه مشر من حیث د منځګړي رول ولوباوه. Cooperation, working together for a common goal. همکاری، کمک. The students showed great cooperation during the project. د پروژې په جریان کې شاګردانو ډیر ښه همغږي یا همکاري وښودله. Achieved, to successfully reach a goal. لاسته راوړل. She achieved her dream of becoming a doctor. هغې خپل خوب د ډاکټر د کېدلو لاسته راوړ. Exploitation, unfair use of someone or something. سوء استفاده، غلطه استفاده. The exploitation of poor workers must stop. دغه د ضعیفو کارمندانو یا کارګرانو سوء استفاده چې دا باید stop. Ethics, moral principles, اخلاق. The doctor followed strong medical ethics. ډاکټر قوي طبي اخلاق تعقیب کړه. Awareness, knowledge or understanding of a situation. خبرتیا. There is more awareness now about education and villages. په کلو کې اوس زیاته پوهه یا خبرتیا خپره ده د تعلیم په اړه. Utopian, ideal but impractical society. تخیلی، خیالي، چې خو اوسي کې خو خیالي وي. A completely corruption-free country is a utopian idea. په پوره توګه د فساد څخه خلاصه ملک چې دی دا یو تخیلي نظر دی. Ponder, to think carefully. فکر کول. He pondered over whether to migrate or stay. هغه په دې باندې فکر وکړ چې پاتې شي که مهاجرت وکړي.
Unit 2, Lesson 4, The Olympic Movement. The Olympic movement encompasses organizations, athletes, and other persons who agree to be guided by the Olympic Charter. Who belongs to the Olympic movement? The Olympic movement groups together all those who agree to be guided by the Olympic Charter and who recognize the authority of the International Olympic Committee, IOC, namely the international federations, IFs, of sports on the program of the Olympic Games, the National Olympic Committees, NOCs, the organizing committees of the Olympic Games, OCOGs, athletes, judges, and referees, associations and clubs, as well as all the organizations and institutions recognized by the IOC. Birth of the Olympic movement. When he announced in Paris on a winter's evening in 1892 the forthcoming re-establishment of the Olympic Games, Pierre de Coubertin was applauded, but nobody at the time imagined the scale of the project entailed in reviving the ancient Olympic Games, appointing a committee in charge of organizing them, and creating an international movement. The IOC was created on June 23, 1894. The first Olympic Games of the modern era opened in Athens on April 6, 1896. And the Olympic movement has not stopped growing ever since. Olympism is a state of mind based on equality of sports, which are international and democratic. It is a philosophy of life, exalting and combining in a balanced whole the qualities of body, will, and mind. Goals of the Olympic movement. The goal of the Olympic movement is to contribute to building a peaceful and better world by educating youth through sport practiced without discrimination of any kind, in a spirit of friendship, solidarity, and fair play. The Olympic movement is defined also by the numerous activities in which it engages, such as promoting sport and competitions through the intermediary of national and international sports institutions worldwide, cooperation with public and private organizations to place sport at the service of mankind, assistance to develop sport for all, advancement of women in sport at all levels and in all structures, with a view to achieving equality between men and women, opposition to all forms of commercial exploitation of sport and athletes, the fight against doping, promoting sports ethics and fair play, raising awareness of environmental problems, financial and educational support for developing countries through the IOC institution Olympic Solidarity. All sports for all people. This is surely a phrase that people will consider foolishly utopian. That prospect troubles me not at all. I have pondered and studied it at length, and know that it is correct and possible, wrote Pierre de Coubertin in 1919. The future proved him right.
Tourist, a person who travels for pleasure. سیاحت کوونکی. Many tourists visit بامیان every year. هر کال ډیر زیات سیلانیان بامیان ګوري. Uninhabitable, not suitable for living. غیر د ژوند کولو وړ. The desert is uninhabitable due to extreme heat. د شدید ګرمۍ له امله دښته چې د ژوند کولو وړ نه ده. Off limits, not allowed to enter. ممنوع. That army base is off limits to civilians. د عامو خلکو لپاره هغه د اردو بیس چې د ممنوع ده. Vegetation, plants in a particular area. بوټي، نباتات. The mountains of Nuristan are full of green vegetation. د نورستان غرونه چې دي د شنه یا سبز نباتات څخه فل دي، ډک دي. Barren, not able to grow plants. Shunned. That land is barren and can't grow crops. هغه ځمکه چې دا شنډه ده او نباتات پکې وده نشي کولی. Inhospitable, harsh and difficult to live in. سخته، نارامه کوونکې. The high mountains are inhospitable in winter. جګ غرونه چې دي سخت وسیږي یا مشکل وسیږي په ژمي کې. وخت مقصد پکې نه تیریږي. Blame, to say someone is responsible for something wrong. ملامتول. They blamed him for breaking the radio. هغه ملامت کړ د رادیو د ماتولو لپاره. Graze, to feed on grass. چرول، څرول، حیوانات چې څروي، مړوي شي. The shepherd grazed his sheep near the river. شپون چې د خپل پسونه د سیند سره نږدې وڅرول. Target, to aim at something or someone. په نښه کول. The health campaign targeted remote villages. دغه د صحت مبارزې په نښه کړي وو لرې کلي. Discouraged, to make someone less confident or enthusiastic. مایوسه کول، زړه تورول. His father discouraged him for leaving school early. دی هغې پلار هغه مایوسه کړو د دغه تصمیم یا دغه موضوع په اړه چې هغه مکتب وختي پرېښود یا له مکتب څخه وختي تلو. Foolhardy, taking foolish or dangerous risks. بې فکره یا ناپوهه خطر اخیستل. It is foolhardy to cross the river during floods. دا نامناسبه خطر اخیستنه ده چې سیند څخه تیر شو د سیلابونو په جریان کې. Secluded, quiet and private, away from people. لرې او خاموشه، یوازې. They built a house in a secluded village in Bamiyan. هغوی په یو لرې کلي کې په بامیانو کې کور جوړ کړ. Native, belonging to a particular area or place. اصلي، موراني. He is a native of Herat. هغه د هرات اصلي اوسیدونکی دی. Boast, to talk with pride about something. لافي وهل، په فخر یا حدودونو پورته ویاړ سره خبرې کول. He boasted about his son's success in the exam. هغه لافي وهل د خپل د زوی د کامیابی په اړه په امتحان کې. Crime, an illegal act. جرم. Stealing is a crime in every society. غلا چې د په هر ټولنه کې یو جرم دی. Commit, to do something bad or illegal. ارتکاب کېدل، مرتکب کېدل، یو څه غلط کول. He committed a crime and went to jail. هغه د جرم مرتکب شو او بندي شو. Suspect, to believe someone is guilty. شک کول، مشکوک کېدل. The police suspect a man in connection with a theft. د غلا په تړاو پولیس په یو سړي باندې مشکوک دي. Draw, to pull something or attract attention. راکاږل یا هم توجه راجلبول. The poet's words draw deep emotions. د شاعر کلماتو ژور احساسات راجلب کړل. Ethnically diverse, having people from different ethnic groups. په قومي زبړه مختلف چې د مختلفو قومونو څخه اشخاص وي. Afghanistan is ethnically diverse with many tribes. افغانستان په قومي زبړه ډیر مختلف قومونه لري. Machineries, machines collectively. ماشینونه. The factory imported new machineries for production. فابریکې نوي ماشینونه وارد کړل د تولید لپاره. Influx, arrival of many people or things. راتګ. There was an influx of people at the shrine during Nowruz. د نوروز په جریان کې د خلکو زیات راتګ و قبر ته.
Unit 3, Places. Unit 3, Lesson 1, Hawaii. If you travel 3,700 kilometers southwest from Los Angeles across the Pacific Ocean, you will reach the islands of Hawaii, the 50th state of the United States. This group of islands has a land area of only 16,700 square kilometers, stretched over 2,500 kilometers of ocean. The 8 main Hawaiian islands are Ni'ihau, Lanai, Kauai, Maui, Oahu, Molokai, Kahulaui, and the Big Island of Hawaii. Not all of the Hawaiian Islands are popular tourist spots. In fact, one of them is uninhabitable and off-limits to tourists. That's the island of Kahoolawe, the smallest of the Hawaiian Islands. Many years ago, this island was covered with vegetation. Today, it is barren and inhospitable. The blame for this goes first to European settlers who brought grazing animals to the island. When the animals finished eating all of the vegetation, nothing remained to protect the soil from the Pacific winds. It's possible that as much as 2 million metric tons of soil gets blown off the island each year. Kahoolawe was also used as a target by the U.S. Navy, and today there are still enough unexploded shells on the ground to discourage even the most foolhardy tourist. At present, the island is being restored, and scientists hope that someday Kahoolawe will be the beautiful place it once was. A second rarely visited part of Hawaii is the island Ni'ihau, which is known as the Forbidden Island. This privately owned island has fewer than 250 inhabitants, and you need an invitation from one of them to be allowed onto the island. The owner of Ni'ihau raises cattle on his secluded ranch, and many of the people on the island work for him. People say that there is no electricity on the island, and that the inhabitants have chosen to live in the traditional way in order to preserve traditional Hawaiian culture. The remaining 6 Hawaiian islands are open to tourists, though 3 of them attract far fewer tourists than the others. Molokai is home to more native Hawaiians than any other island. This island boasts the highest sea cliffs in the world and a wildlife park with rare animals from Africa and India. For many years, Molokai was one of the most beautiful prisons in the world. From 1865 to 1969, more than 8,000 people were sent to this island, but the only crime these people had committed was to suffer from Hansen's disease, formerly known as leprosy. Until a treatment for the disease was discovered in the late 1940s, anyone suspected of carrying the disease was sent to live in isolation on Molokai. Molokai is also home to the Kalokeole fish pond, which is an example of the sophisticated aquaculture used on the island at least 700 years ago. South of Molokai lies the island of Lanai. Lanai is a relatively dry island because the mountains on Molokai block the rain clouds from reaching the island. That doesn't mean Lanai is barren and infertile. Today, 1/5 of all Hawaiian pineapples come from this island. The island of Kauai has the honor of being one of the wettest places on Earth, with an average of 1,240 centimeters of rain per year. The remaining 3 islands, Oahu, Maui, and Hawaii, are all popular destinations for tourists. With its wonderful surfing, beaches, and golf courses, Oahu draws the most tourists of all. Oahu also has the only royal palace in the United States and the largest wind generator in the world. The island of Maui draws visitors who want to see the world's largest inactive volcano, while the most daring tourists travel to the island of Hawaii, which has the world's most active volcano. Hawaii is also the largest island in the group. In fact, Hawaii is twice the size of the other 7 islands combined. Hawaii also produces some of the world's best coffee and macadamia nuts, and 1/3 of the world's supply of pineapples. Of all the states in the United States, Hawaii has perhaps the most ethnically diverse population, and that may be a result of the way in which the islands were settled. The first people to make their home on the Hawaiian Islands sailed there from other Pacific islands between the years 300 and 600. Much later, the English explorer and mapmaker Captain James Cook sailed to the Hawaiian Islands. In 1778, Cook put the islands on his maps, and before long, whaling ships were stopping there for supplies. In the 1820s, missionaries from the United States arrived to teach the Hawaiian people about Christianity. Some of the missionaries settled there permanently and started farms to grow sugar, and later pineapples. As the farms grew and more farm workers were needed, the farm owners brought in workers from other countries. In 1852, workers arrived from China, followed by an influx of Japanese workers in 1868 and workers from the Philippines in 1906. Later, people from Korea, Portugal, and Puerto Rico came to work on the farms. Over time, people from the different ethnic groups intermarried, handing down a rich mix of cultures to their children and grandchildren. For example, a Hawaiian child might have a Chinese-Hawaiian mother and a Portuguese-Filipino father. Today, about 1.2 million people live in Hawaii, but only 10,000 are native Hawaiians. Hawaii is known as the Aloha State. Aloha means hello, goodbye, and I love you in Hawaiian. It's a word the average tourist is likely to say many times while visiting the Hawaiian Islands.
Wilderness, an area of wild nature not lived in. Bayaban, Dakhta. He went camping in the wilderness of Nuristan. Hage camping talada the Nuristan pa Bayaban ki. Lush, rich with plants and greenery. Shna, hasil kheza. The valley was lush after the spring rain. Urusta the pasarlir baran sakha darachiwa shnawa hasil kheza takka shnawa matlab labutu dakawa. Static, not moving or changing. Sabit, the village remained static for years without development. Kala sabita patishu bidun lakam parmakhtak sakha tar kalunu puri. Due, expected or scheduled. Takal shawe. The teacher's arrival is due at 10 a.m. The ustaz rasidana plus baji the sahar takal shawe. Due to, because of, lamala, dalila. The flight was delayed due to heavy fog. The shadid uriz lamala flight ya parwaz was underway. Place, to put something in a position. He placed the Quran on a high shelf with respect. Hagad the dir ihtaram sara Quran Sharif pa yaw lwada takhcha bandi ki khud. Degrade, to reduce the quality of something. Kharabawal, kayfiyat war titawal. Pollution degrades the quality of drinking water. Aludagi ya chartaltia chi da the tsikhulu the ubo kayfiyat kharabawi. Drought, a long period without rain. Which kali, the drought affected farmers in Kandahar badly. Which kali pa Kandahar ke pa basgarano pa dir bad dawal tasir waka. Accelerate, to speed up. Tezawal surrat warkawal. The project was accelerated before winter started. Makhilati chi jama bail chi proja teza shwa. Erode, to slowly wear away. The river eroded the soil near the village. Sin haga khawra chi de kali sar nigde wa pusluda wali laminze yawda. Vulnerable, easily harmed. Asib word, the zarar rasidulu word. Refugees are vulnerable during winter without shelters. Muhajirin چې پناهګاوي ونه لري په ژمي کې ډیر په اسانۍ سره ضربه ګوري یا د ضربې د رسیدلو وړ دي. Divert, to change the direction. اړول, they diverted the water to irrigate the nearby farms. هغوی اوبه واړولې ترڅو نږدې پټي پرې پڼه کړي. Gain, to get or increase, لاسته راوړل. He gained respect through honesty. هغه د صداقت په وسیله احترام لاسته راوړ. Barrier, something that blocks movement or access. خنډ, موانع. They built a barrier to stop flood water. هغوی یو خنډ یا موانع جوړ کړ ترڅو د سیلاب دغه اوبه سټاپ کړي وي دروي. Significantly, in an important or noticeable way, په مهمه توګه. Education significantly improved village life. تعلیم په مهمه بڼه د کلي ژوند ته وده ورکړه. Adept, highly skilled, ماهر. He is adept at repairing solar panels. هغه د شمسیو په جوړولو کې ماهر دی. Reclaim, to take back or restore. بیا ترلاسه کول. Farmers reclaimed barren land for cultivation. بازګرانو هغه شنډه ځمکه د کرنې لپاره بیرته لاسته راوړه. Management, the process of handling or organizing. مدیریت. Good water management helps during drought. د وچکالۍ په جریان کې ښه د اوبو مدیریت چې دی مرسته کوي. Livestock, farm animals like cow and sheep. څاروي. His family income depends on livestock. د هغوی د کورنۍ عاید د څارویو څخه دی. Ban, to officially stop something. منع کول. بندول. There is a ban on cutting trees in the forest. په ځنګل کې د ونو پر کټ کولو باندې بندیز لګیدلی. Despite, in spite of, سره له دې. با موجودیت این despite the rain the children went to school د باران پشتون کې ماشومان مکتب ته لاړل refugees people who fled their country for safety کډوال many refugees returned home after peace وروسته له صلح څخه ډیر کډوال بیرته ملک ته راوګرځېدل catastrophe a big disaster لوی ناورین مصیبت The earthquake was a real catastrophe for the region. زلزله چې یو حقیقي مصیبت و د ساحل.
Unit 3, Lesson 2, Deserts. They are some of the coldest places on Earth and some of the hottest. They exist on every continent except Europe, and together they cover roughly 1/3 of the land on Earth. We call them deserts, and they all have one thing in common. They get less than 250 millimeters of rain a year. The world's largest and hottest desert spreads across North Africa, from the Red Sea to the Atlantic Ocean, covering more than 9 million square kilometers. It's called the Sahara, which means wilderness in Arabic. But the Sahara was not always a barren wilderness. At one time, it was an area of lush vegetation with huge river systems. Cave paintings found in the area reveal that elephants, giraffes, and other animals once lived there. There is nothing static about deserts. The sizes and locations of the world's deserts are always changing. Over millions of years, as the climate changed and mountains rose, new dry areas developed. But within the last 100 years, deserts have been growing at a frightening speed. This is due in part to climate change, but the greatest desert makers of all are humans. The process of turning productive land into desert-like land is called desertification. Desertification takes place slowly, as small pieces of degraded land spread and merge together. Desertification can take place naturally on the edges of existing deserts, or it can start in small patches hundreds of miles away from the nearest desert. When there's a drought, for example, the winds and high temperatures dry the soil out. Eventually, the topsoil is blown or washed away, and nothing can grow in the area. Unfortunately, these natural processes are greatly accelerated by the activities of human beings. The human activity most destructive to the soil is overgrazing. When there are too many animals eating the vegetation in an area, the root systems of the plants are destroyed, and the soil is left without a protective cover. The unprotected soil can then be easily eroded. Any land that is cleared of vegetation becomes vulnerable to desertification. A second cause of desertification is improper irrigation. Farmers in many parts of the world divert water supplies for their crops. However, one area's gain is another area's loss. In China's Xinjiang Autonomous Region, for example, the building of dams and the withdrawal of water for irrigation have dried up the Tarim River. This has caused the trees and other vegetation that acted as a barrier between the Taklamakan and Kumtag deserts to die off. Now the two deserts are spreading toward each other, and they may eventually merge. Deforestation also contributes significantly to desertification. In developing countries, 90% of the people use wood for cooking and heating. However, cutting down trees for firewood leaves the land exposed to the sun. The smaller plants that grow under the trees cannot survive without the shade of the trees. And without leaves from the trees to enrich it, the soil becomes poor and deprived of nutrients. Eventually, the smaller plants die, and nothing remains but barren land. Oftentimes, the soil is so degraded that it becomes as hard as concrete. Large pieces of land cleared to grow crops can become useless in just a few seasons. While humans have shown themselves to be adept at making deserts, they can also stop their spread and even reclaim the land. In 1977, the United Nations invited representatives from around the world to a conference on desertification. The members of the conference came up with a plan to stop or reduce desertification and to reclaim the degraded land. They also designated June 17th as World Day to combat desertification and drought. It is part of a United Nations campaign to make people more aware of land degradation. Some of the methods for stopping the advance of deserts are quite simple. Algeria, for example, has planted a green wall of trees across the edge of the Sahara to prevent more land from turning into desert. Mauritania planted a similar wall around Nouakchott, its capital. In Kenya, farmers have planted more than 7 million trees around croplands to reduce wind erosion. And now, the Chinese government has started the world's largest tree planting project, a green wall that will stretch for more than 5,700 kilometers. In Iran, people put a thin layer of petroleum on the dry land to help the land hold water and newly planted vegetation. To stop the overgrazing of land, some areas are requiring the careful management of livestock, while other areas have gone so far as to ban the grazing of certain kinds of animals on open land. To combat deforestation, people are being encouraged to use alternative methods of heating and cooking. Simple devices such as solar cookers and wind turbines can help to reduce people's dependence on wood. Despite these efforts, the rate of desertification has doubled since the 1970s. Just since 1990, it is estimated that roughly 6 million hectares of productive land has been degraded each year. Today, roughly 135 million people are at risk of losing their land to desertification and becoming refugees. Perhaps UN spokesman Michel Smetal described the situation best when he said, "It's a creeping catastrophe. Entire parts of the world might become uninhabitable."
Extreme, very severe or intense, shadid. The region experiences extreme heat in summer. دغه ساحه باندې شدیده ګرمي تیریږي په اوړي کې. Feat, an achievement that requires skill or strength, ستر کار, بریا. Building a school in the mountains was a great feat. په غرنیزه ساحه کې یا په غرونو کې یو مکتب جوړول یو ستره بریا وه. Unimaginable, too great restraints to be thought of. غیر د تصور وړ. The damage from the flood was unimaginable. هغه ضرر چې سیلاب ورسولو د غیر تصور وړ و. Flesh, the soft part of the body under the skin. غوښه. The lion tore the flesh of the animal. زمری د حیوان غوښه پرې کړله. Approximately, around a number or amount. شاوخوا تقریبا. Approximately 50 families live in this village. تقریبا 50 کورنۍ په دغه کلی کې ژوند کوي. Enormous, very big, ډیر لوی, ډیر غټ. They saw an enormous mountain in Nuristan. هغوی یو ډیر غټ غر ولید په نورستان کې. Invertebrate, an animal without a backbone. بیستونی ژوی. Insects like ants are invertebrates. حشرات لکه میږیان بیستونی ژوي دي. Peninsula, a piece of land surrounded by water on 3 sides. نیمه ټاپو. 3 طرفه چې اوبه وي. Arabian Peninsula is full of deserts. عربي نیمه ټاپو چې دا له دښتو څخه ډکه ده. Colossal, extremely large, ډیر غټ. The mosque had a colossal dome. مسجد یو ډیر غټه ګنبته درلودله یا ګرد هغې درلوده پاس شوسي. Teeming, full of life or things. تر خولې پورې ډک. The river was teeming with fish. سیند چې و تر خولې پورې ډک و د بهیان څخه. Food chain, a system where one organism eats another. د خوړو لړۍ. In the food chain, rabbits are eaten by foxes. د خوړو په لړۍ یا سیستم کې خرګوش چې دی د ګیدړو په وسیله یا ګیدړې خوري. Hardy, strong and able to survive difficult conditions. زغم لرونکی. The mountain goats are hardy animals. غرنیزې وزې چې دي زغم لرونکي حیوانات دي. In turn, a student working to gain experience. شاګرد عملی زده کړه کوونکی. He worked as an intern in a Kabul hospital. هغه په کابل کې په شفاخانه کې منحیز د یو شاګرد کار کاوه. Treaty, an official agreement between countries. توافقنامه. The countries signed a peace treaty. ملکونو یو د صلح توافقنامه امضا کړله. Forever, for all the time, د تل لپاره. He said he will love his country forever. هغه ویل چې هغه به د تل لپاره د خپل ملک سره مینه لري. Seen, past participle form of see. لیدلی. I have never seen snow in Helmand. ما هیڅ کله واوره نه ده لیدلې په هلمند کې. Discord, lack of agreement, conflict, شخړه, اختلاف. There was discord between the village 2 elders. د کلي د دوو مشرانو ترمنځ اختلاف رامنځته شوی و. Link, a connection, اړیکه. There is a strong link between health and clean water. د پاکو اوبو او صحت ترمنځ یوه قوي اړیکه ده.
Unit 3, Lesson 3. Antarctica. In 2001, Anne Bancroft and Liv Arneson traveled 2,700 kilometers on foot across Antarctica, each pulling a sled carrying 100 kilograms of food and equipment. Crossing this land of extremes was no easy feat. The temperature in Antarctica is often an unimaginable negative 40 degrees Celsius, the temperature at which skin and flesh freeze. Antarctica holds the record for the coldest temperature ever measured on Earth, which is negative 89.2 degrees Celsius. Antarctica contains approximately 70% of the world's fresh water supply, and yet it is considered to be one of the world's largest deserts. That's because Antarctica's enormous supply of fresh water is locked up in ice that averages over 2 kilometers in thickness. If the ice sheets melted, the seas would rise as much as 60 meters. However, like all other deserts on Earth, Antarctica receives less than 250 millimeters of rain a year. It's hard to believe that 500 million years ago, Antarctica had a warm climate and a cover of lush vegetation. Despite the enormous size of the continent, only a few invertebrates can survive on the Antarctic Peninsula, and even they are rare. The largest of this group is a type of midge, which grows to the colossal size of 12 millimeters. The only plant life that can survive in this harsh climate consists mainly of algae, moss, and lichen. While the surface of Antarctica is inhospitable to most living things, the water surrounding the continent is teeming with living creatures. At the bottom of the food chain in Antarctic waters is a hardy type of algae. During the winter, the algae live between the layers of snow on the sea ice, but when the ice breaks open in the spring, the algae pour into the ocean. Huge numbers of krill, tiny sea animals that are less than 8 centimeters long, feed on the algae. The krill, in turn, are a vital source of food for seabirds, fish, seals, whales, and penguins. Animals are not the only creatures drawn to the land of extremes. In 1959, the Antarctic Treaty established Antarctica as a special area to be governed internationally and used for scientific research. The treaty declared, "It is in the interest of all mankind that Antarctica shall continue to be used forever for peaceful purposes and shall not become the scene or object of international discord." Today, Antarctica has more than 30 research stations, including those of Argentina, Australia, Chile, Germany, Great Britain, Italy, Japan, New Zealand, Russia, and the United States. Most scientists live and work there from October to March, when the sun shines 24 hours a day. The second half of the year brings darkness and isolation. The few scientists who remain are trapped for months with only radios, phones, and the internet to link them to the rest of the world. After 6 or 7 months, a plane returns with supplies and releases the scientists from their solitude. Scientists know that this huge icy area holds important information about the planet. Their research has already shown that Antarctica plays a crucial role in the production of the cold, deep water responsible for the circulation of water in the oceans. They also know that Antarctica holds the largest supply of fresh water on Earth. Much of their research focuses on ozone, a form of oxygen. The ozone layer protects living things from the dangerous rays of the sun. In the mid-1980s, scientists discovered that the ozone layer above Antarctica was very thin. Scientists have also discovered that the temperature of the air and the water in Antarctica has been slowly rising since 1970. Warmer temperatures result in less sea ice during the winter months, and this may be having an effect on the Antarctic food chain. Scientists know that the number of krill in ocean waters near the Antarctic Peninsula has declined about 80% since the 1970s. The most likely explanation is the decline in the amount of winter sea ice and the algae that live on it. Humans are also affecting the food chain in Antarctica as they start harvesting krill in greater and greater numbers. It turns out that krill is a useful ingredient in a number of products. For example, it's used to make cosmetics, contact lenses, artificial skin, and specialized cleaning supplies. Other natural resources in Antarctica are being similarly exploited commercially. Scientists will continue to study the penguin and krill populations and carefully watch the ozone layer above Antarctica and the ice in the seas. If we are smart, we will protect the Antarctic environment that is so vital to our own well-being.